Hi everybody, welcome to Aussies do Homeschool season.
And today we're going to be interviewing our EE teacher, Adrienne Alexander.
She is a qualified registered Queensland teacher who specialises in gifted education. So stick around.
Sienna, Sienna, sing with me.
Oh, and if you stick around to the end, you're going to see a little bit of EE and what they do there.
And you're going to be seeing some more.
No, you're not going to be seeing any
And
more.
hunter montages.
No more hunter montages. Not this time. Just stick around.
You know how they say idle hands do the devil's work? Well, gifted idle hands do the devil's work really well.
I am here with the beautiful Adrienne Alexander, principal and teacher at EE, or Extension Education. Could you tell me a little bit about how EE started?
Okay, so EE started, I was working with Kirsten Balch, who used to be my employer, and she made the rash decision to tell me that she was looking for a new project, and I said, well, have I got the idea for you? Extension education basically follows a model that is used in New Zealand, which provides an opportunity for children who are in homeschooling situations or in regular school situations to have a significant period of time working with like ability students, which is really important.
So EE is a program for gifted students.
It is.
It's a one-day program and it runs, is it 3 locations from Brisbane to Sunshine Coast?
At the moment, 2 locations, one on the Sunshine Coast, one down in Brisbane. How it works is the kids come out of whatever their regular schooling situation is for one full day of teaching per week. We have a different program every term, which is negotiated with the students themselves.
So it's fun to watch them doing that.
Yes. One characteristic of gifted children is that they've got a really keen notion of justice and things being fair. So we have a complex preferential voting system, but so that all of the kids can know that their views have fully been appreciated.
But it works.
It works.
Yeah, because they all seem to come away happy with whatever the decision is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Which leads me to my next question. What are some of the traits of gifted children? Say if they hadn't been tested, what are some of the things that a parent would notice or look for?
Oh, look, I mean, to an extent, the only thing about gifted children that is universal is that they're all different. But having said that, there are certain little clues and signs that you can look for. A lot of them, but not all of them, develop language early and just sort of hit those milestones a little bit early. But you'll often see things like a quirky sense of humour. Definitely your 2 children have a quirky sense of humour, and
Yes.
and will often have a different take on the world than some of their peers. They often have really good vocabularies and are not afraid to use them.
No, definitely not.
Quite often really strong emotions.
Yes.
Yes, definitely. And which can sometimes make life a little bit challenging for these kids because they feel things so strongly. As I've said before, quite often a keen interest in what is fair and what is just. On the other hand, that doesn't mean that they're going to agree with each other necessarily on what is fair and what is just. No. They often have, deep and passionate interests in things and want to take that beyond where another child might. In their areas of interest, they might have encyclopedic knowledge of things to do with that subject, and will quite possibly talk your ear off on that subject. So, you might say, well, lots of little kids have an interest in dinosaurs, but your gifted child might want to talk to you for a considerable period of time about questions.
Lots of questions.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
In fact, when I got into gifted education was actually through working with my own son, who is highly gifted, and being a teacher, just noticing that there wasn't much out there. But when David was little, I mean, my husband used to say at a certain time, look, the question shop has closed for the night, because he was relentless with the questions. Just as an example, when he was a toddler, he had a passionate interest in plumbing. So
It's an odd one.
it's and
It doesn't surprise me, but it's an odd one.
yeah. So it was one of his first loves was plumbing. So he wouldn't be satisfied with just the simple answer. So for example, if he saw the water go down the plug hole in the sink, okay, where does the water go? So it goes down the plug hole into it, but where does it go then? Yeah. And can I see that?
Can we dig up the backyard and have a look?
Absolutely. Can we, so we're reading about the wastewater treatment system and finding out about that, and you're going to somebody's house and he's wanting to see their pipes. Right?
I like it.
Okay. But then after a while, that became a fascination with electricity, and so
Yeah, because they seem to get to a point where they know as much as they can for that sort of age
for
group,
that thing.
or a bit higher than that age group, and then they sort of move on to the next thing, don't they?
That's right. But
And get just as involved.
Yeah, having said that, so we did plumbing, then we did electricity, and then he took the two of them, slapped them together, passionate about anatomy. Because if you think about anatomy, it's all electricity and pipes.
I like it.
Yeah, and then it was, once again, like you said, the questions. Where do tears come from? What are tears made of? And you say, oh, they come from your tear ducts. And you think, okay,
That should be enough.
I've done it. But no, where does that, where do the tears, where does the water and the salt,
Now you kind of piqued my curiosity.
how do they get into the tear duct? How is that created? And I'm calling, my pharmacist friend and saying, tell me, help. And she's saying, we never actually got taught that, and I don't know. So
I love it.
They're asking really, really hard questions all of the time.
It's exhausting.
It's completely exhausting. It is fascinating raising a gifted child. It is interesting. It is stimulating. It is seldom relaxing.
It is exhausting, which leads me to my next question.
Yes.
I remember when I first called, I think it was Kirsten who I spoke to first, and I was exhausted because I'd been dealing with a system that did not understand my child. I didn't even understand my child at that point. And I was just completely exhausted. I had been pushed with all these different theories of what was wrong with him. And I must admit, when I called, I probably was crying. Is that a normal conversation that you have with parents when they call you for the first time?
Yes. Actually, I remember when you first brought him to me. But I remember you saying, oh, here he's just normal.
Yeah, because that was the biggest thing. Because it'd been years of seriously pushing against a system who thought there was everything wrong with him in the world.
Yeah.
To see him all of a sudden with his peer group, his people, and he was just normal.
Yeah, a real peer group. And quite often that it is not uncommon for parents to cry.
No, because
when
I think it's
talk
just
to
that
them
release of
absolutely
everything.
And quite often, yes, the experience that they have had with school may have been very negative.
Definitely.
We get quite often the pattern that you'll see is the child being, reasonably happy throughout the preschool years, because in a lot of preschool situations, even if they are at daycare or so forth, there's quite often more choice and more flexibility in what the kids can do. And for these kids, that's really important to have that flexible environment which will allow them to explore their passions, allow them to go as far as they want to go. As soon as you get into something more regimented, then
so true.
Then you can really have problems. I've told this story countless times. When I started teaching Kirsten's son, and I was doing extension with him after school, because he'd just started in prep, and I remember saying to him, so what did you learn at school today? And he said, we learned how to write the number 1. He said, we drew it, we talked about it, and then we sewed it on a piece of cardboard. Mine is on the fridge, he said. And then he looked at me and he said, it's a line. Right? And this was a kid that I was, I think we were doing bridge making at that point, and we were talking about, compression and tension, and he was just bored out of his mind. And what can happen is that that child is very frustrated. And kids react in different ways depending on their personalities. But often what happens is that the behaviour starts to go. Because they're so bored and they're so frustrated, and there's something, it's perhaps a little bit flippant, but I'm inclined to tell parents, teachers and principals what can happen when you've got a child who's in the regular school system and they're not having their needs met, what effect that can have on the child and therefore on their parents. And so one thing that I quite often say to teachers and principals who are saying, well, why do we need to do something different for this child? You know how they say idle hands do the devil's work? Well, gifted idle hands do the devil's work really well. So, yes, and so quite often what parents are telling me in that first interview when I'm talking to them about their child, they might very well be telling me that the school has started to complain that
was my story.
That the child is misbehaving. Sometimes they're incorrectly saying, there's something wrong with this child. They're wanting the child tested to see if they're on the autistic spectrum, which which some kids are and are gifted, but quite often if you look at a gifted child in that regular education setting, sometimes they can appear as though they're on the autistic spectrum even if they're not, because they're not really engaging in a normal way with their peers. I've got one of my students, his mother told me this story which I think sort of indicates this kind of thing. Her child went along to I think it was kindy, right? And he came home and she knew that he was really quite advanced. But he came home and he said, Mum, I need to work so hard to catch up with those kids. They're so advanced. And she said, really? She was surprised. And he said, they are so advanced that they're not interested in talking about the periodic table anymore.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh, honey, I don't think that's it. But he had tried to have a social interaction with his peers and had just met with blank.
Yeah, Hunter had that a lot.
Yeah.
I would witness that a lot in the playground. I think I've said before that he would be wanting to just chat whatever he was into at the time. Maybe it was Minecraft, but he knew every block, every weapon. I'm pretending I know a lot about Minecraft and I don't.
Yeah.
And they would sort of just look and go, oh, we want to play aeroplanes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Normal,
completely
and awesome.
normal. Yeah.
He didn't want to play aeroplanes.
And so,
And they would have problems.
Yes. And so sometimes the gifted child will just withdraw into themselves.
Or get on everyone's nerves.
Or get on
havoc.
everyone's nerves.
Or
and
not.
so then... No, really? And so then will appear to have some sort of a social problem.
Yes.
They're just in the wrong peer group.
Yeah, because when they're in EE, they're all just as weirdly beautiful, and they're all the same.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I very clearly remember a mother, her little girl, the school had just said, we really think that she's on the autistic spectrum, and because she doesn't interact with the other children at all. And when the mother told me this, it was lunchtime. We were standing together watching this child running around and laughing and talking with the other children, and I said, really?
Yeah. If they could just see them with the other kids, they would understand,
right.
wouldn't they?
Yeah.
So then you've got the gifted child.
Yes.
And then you've got the 2E or twice exceptional,
Yes.
which is the child who has dyslexia, ADHD, ASD.
Yeah.
All the different initials. How much harder is it for a child who is 2E to say just a gifted or your average child?
It's so hard on those children, and they're quite often completely exhausted at the end of the school day. They will come home exhausted, or they will come home and have a massive meltdown because they've been holding it together all day.
That was Sienna for me.
What's really terrible for those kids is that quite often neither of their needs gets met in the regular school, neither their giftedness nor their learning difficulty that they have is catered for, and quite often neither is recognised. Because what they're doing is they're spending the whole day using their gifts to mask or compensate for their work learning difficulty, and so they'll just appear as average or maybe a little below average, and so they're not getting the support that they need, and they're not getting the extension they need, and those are very, very frustrated, unhappy children.
Yeah, which can also lead to a lot of problems when they get older if they can't.
Absolutely. Well, quite often they won't necessarily even recognise their giftedness themselves, because they're not having the positive reinforcement that comes from knowing when that you're capable. And so those are the kids who will feel that they're stupid, and who will feel that they don't fit in anywhere.
Very important. What are some of those misconceptions people have about gifted children?
Okay. Well, one of them is the misconception that they're all the same, and that they'll be gifted in everything.
Yes.
And that therefore, if you see a child who isn't gifted in everything, that they're not gifted.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'm sometimes told by teachers, well, I don't think that child can be gifted because, their spelling is awful, or because their handwriting is too messy. clearly these teachers have never met your average GP because right? Am I right?
Or
yes.
lawyer.
Yeah, or lawyer.
Yeah. Bad writing.
Bad writing. Gifted children, they might be gifted across the board academically, or they might be gifted in only one area. That doesn't make them less gifted. So that's really important.
Yeah.
Another misconception is that it's all just pushy parents. As you know.
Yeah. What was the first thing that someone said to me? Oh, they'll grow out. I'm the least helicopter parent you'll meet.
First of all, quite often, with my experience with the parents that I'm dealing with, the vast majority of parents of gifted children, they're not pushing, they're being dragged. They're being dragged by these children with their insatiable thirst for experiences and learning.
Definitely.
So no, they are not pushy parents. They won't grow out of it, but what you can do is you can take this child who has this passion and this thirst for learning, and you can turn that off. You can make that child disengage from learning. And so when people say, oh, they grew out of it, what they meant was that you took that fire and you put it out.
Yeah.
So that's another misconception that you can have. There's also this idea that that gifted children can't be good at physical things. I think a lot of people have this idea in their head of what the gifted child looks like.
It's like a nerd or something.
Yeah. So
Nothing like that. Although I'm sure there are some out there that
there are.
Yeah.
Look, okay. My own son, my eldest.
Yeah.
He was. Look, you would have recognised him as gifted.
Yeah.
He was gifted academically across the board.
Yeah.
Not great social skills.
Yeah.
And watching the boy try to throw a ball was frankly sad. And he'd admit that too.
I must admit mine aren't very
thing.
sporty either.
Right. But
Artistic but not sporty.
I know lots of gifted kids who are very sporty as well.
Some are gifted in sports.
Some are gifted in sports.
Yeah.
So that's not true.
No.
It's
true for mine, but not true.
Yes.
So another thing I wanted to ask is when you have, say, a gifted that's struggling with school, and I don't mean struggling academically with school, I mean struggling with the system that is school,
Yes.
or a 2E child who is doing the same, basically, but even harder, is homeschool a good alternative in your eyes, in your opinion?
In some situations, it's the only alternative. Kirsten and I did a study, just a survey, looking at who our EE parents were, where the kids were getting their regular education, whether they were in private schools, state schools, homeschooling situation, and about a third of them at that time were in homeschooling situations. And when we asked them, was that something they always wanted to do, or had they resorted, had this been the last resort in terms of not being able to find what they needed in the regular school situation, and in 100% of those parents who were homeschooling had, well, you've done both, haven't you?
Oh yeah, I've said before, I had this preconceived idea. My kids were going to a private school from prep to year 12. I've said it before, lifelong friends, yeah. That was thrown out pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
And you end up just having to do what's right for your child.
That's right.
Yeah. And that sometimes includes homeschool.
That's right. Now, I do know some parents of gifted children who always wanted to homeschool, but
some can't homeschool. You know, they've got work or they've got other things that they have to do. It's not something that everyone can do.
Yeah, and some people just feel as though, look, I don't have the temperament or whatever. But for a lot, and here you are,
and here I am.
Yes, and doing a great job of it, I might add. But absolutely, it provides. If you look at what a gifted child needs from their education, there's actually a researcher here in Australia by the name of Karen Rogers, and she did a meta-study looking at hundreds and hundreds of studies of gifted children and what they needed from their education. And she boiled it down to 5 things that all of the research said that gifted children need. And they were a fast-paced curriculum. Okay. They had opportunities for acceleration, you know, whether that's subject acceleration or whole grade skipping or whatever, where appropriate. Okay. The opportunity to explore areas of passion and talent. She also identified that they needed opportunities to work with like-minded students, so similar ability students,
which is the good thing about EE.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, something that we like to provide. She said that they. Oh gosh, I've forgotten what the 5th thing was. I had a 5th thing that I wanted to say.
I'll put it down in the description.
Thank you very much. So if we look at homeschooling and what that offers, you can see that other than that opportunity for working with like-minded students, and that can be arranged, that homeschooling ticks all of those boxes.
Yes.
Because it has the flexibility to look at what this child needs. The difficulty, and look, I've been a teacher in large, mostly state classrooms, unstreamed, and you've got 25, 30 kids in front of you. I've had a range of reading ages from 5 to 15 in the same class, and look, you absolutely can differentiate your program to meet the needs of a lot of students, but the reality is that what often happens is that the teacher is under a huge amount of pressure to meet the needs of the average child, whatever that cookie cutter child looks like, and the kids who are at the bottom, who are struggling, who are not meeting whatever national standard you are working to. And so there just isn't the time left over.
No, because how many gifted children roughly would be in a school of say 700 people?
Well,
which is your average kind of school, 1 or 2?
It depends on your definition of gifted, whether you're looking
gifted,
at
is in the sense tested gifted.
From
test.
And okay, let's say even that you have, you're looking at the top 5% or the top 2%.
Yeah.
What are your chances, even if you've got those kids, that they're all going to be in the same class together?
Or the same age, or
the same age, or that they'll all like each other.
Exactly, because they've still got their own personalities.
Haven't they just? Yeah. So you've got all of that going on. It's really hard to actually offer those possibilities for exploring areas of talent, for providing that fast-paced, differentiated curriculum, accelerating where needed.
Yeah.
That's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Some schools do a great job, but it's a lot easier in the homeschooling situation.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even with Hunter, I mean, he doesn't like writing, which a lot of them don't, I've noticed.
That's true.
But in his mathematics, he's a couple of years advanced, whereas then English, he needs the same age group that he's in. So it does, in a wide variety of areas that they excel in, and homeschool allows them to be wherever they need to be in whatever subject it is.
That's right. Which might be it, and you've talked about that sort of asynchrony,
Yes.
where you're this age in this subject area,
Yeah.
but maybe below the average even
Yes.
in a different subject area, and emotionally you might be somewhere else again. When I taught James, when he was 5, I was doing things like teaching him economics, and then we would if he'd done well in economics, then we might go off and have a teddy bear's picnic, right?
It's so true.
To reward him for doing so well with supply and demand.
Oh, they're an interesting bunch.
They are indeed.
So in the same way, how important is it for these kids to have somewhere like EE, Extension Education, as part of their education process? And
It's very important. It's very important. Not just to, because, what can those other children do for the gifted child? Well, one, they can challenge them a bit. And let's be honest, sometimes it is really healthy for a gifted child to turn up in the room and think, I'm not the smartest person here.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh,
Definitely.
How am I going to cope with that? That's a really good lesson, because
Yes.
often they can spend all of their time knowing that they are the smartest person in the room.
Which can put a lot of pressure on a gifted child too.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And we can talk about perfectionism that can come out of that. All of these kids, like even the ones who aren't interested in science, few and far between, they're all little scientists in that they're constantly taking in data
Yes.
and analysing it and interpreting it and coming to conclusions, some of which will be wrong.
Yes.
Okay. So with that, the information that they're getting in a regular school classroom is, I'm different.
Yes.
I don't know necessarily how I'm different, but I know that all of these kids are thinking in a different way than I am.
Yeah.
And they seem to be pretty happy,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
They
very
seem to
true.
be fitting in, and they seem to be happy, and I'm different. So that must mean there's something wrong
with me.
There is something wrong with me.
I actually had Hunter come home one time, and he never showed emotion when it came to his school peers.
Yeah?
But one time I remember him distinctly getting in the car. He started crying, which he never did, and said, "What is wrong with me?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I'm different than the other kids." He said those exact words from my mum.
Yeah. And this is why I really do encourage parents to tell their kids that they are gifted.
Because I never did at first.
Yeah.
He didn't know for ages.
Because,
But I do now.
you do, some parents, a lot of parents will have that sort of little cringe thing where you don't want to make them big-headed, you don't want to...
I think that comes from society.
Yeah.
Because I was worried about saying to people, because the reaction you get when you tell people.
Full eye roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All the comments, all the everyone's gifted and all that stuff, and
Yeah.
it's not a badge of honour that we're trying to display at all.
And by the way, every child is a gift, but not every child is gifted.
Yeah.
So, is the distinction that I would make. But the thing about about how kids see themselves, if they don't know that they're gifted and they don't get to spend time with other gifted children, is that feeling of isolation and the feeling of being different and wrong, can be really destructive.
Yeah.
When they come to somewhere like EE, they look around and they can say, oh, okay, here I'm normal.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe I am different from those kids at my regular school,
Yeah.
but here I'm normal and I'm okay, and there's nothing wrong with me, and that can actually make it easier for them to get through the rest of the schooling week.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, yes.
And
the parents to get through the rest of it.
yeah, fewer meltdowns. I had a lovely thing one of the parents said to me the other day. She's got her 5-year-old has just started with us, and she said every other day of the week it's dragging the feet, it's tears,
Yeah.
it's school refusal, it's arguing, and he gets up on a Wednesday bright and
Thursday out
early,
the door.
and he said, well, today is happy school.
Oh, that's cute.
Isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah, that's cute.
Yeah.
Hunter was the same.
Yeah.
When
So-
we did school, he was the same.
Yeah.
I very rarely could get him to school. He'd always have something wrong with him. He was always sick on every other day but a Wednesday.
Yeah. But Wednesday
And if he was
is happy
ever
school.
sick on a Wednesday, heaven help me. Well, I think that's probably...
Yeah.
Well, I think we've
Okay.
given a lot of information. Thank you very much for letting me interview you.
Thank
It's
you
been a
for
wealth of
including me.
information. Yeah, I had to because I don't know all this myself. And you are the expert. Definitely.
too kind.
She's an expert.
I
She's
have
an
my
expert.
moments.
I will place a link for Adrienne and EE or Extension Education in the description just in case anyone was interested or has seen those traits in their own child.
Happy to have a chat with anybody too. So if you wanted to pop a link to our Facebook page as well,
yes, I will.
then I could have a chat to anyone who's got a question.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mini book.
That's all I get.
Yes. Always do.
I want to know what you're doing. What books have you chosen?
Five Nights at Freddy's Silver has Tom Gates, Top of the Class, Tom Gates Biscuits, Spans and Very Big Plans, and Die of a Minecraft Zombie Into Book.
And which one's your favourite?
The one I haven't finished, FNAF the Silver Eyes.
Oh,
Also the oldest. But this one is puns.
puns. I believe all of them have puns in your opinion.
This one has the most puns.
So we're a puns fan.
No, this is just puns. It's just basically a pun book. It's trying to be a normal book, but it basically just is a pun book.
And are you making pretend spines for the books? Are you going to give a little book review?
She knows too much.
Oh,
She knows too much. Exterminate. I'm not joking.
well done.
Exterminate.
Well, thanks, Hunter, for sharing.
Thanks for sharing, Hunter.
Apparently, this is a work in progress.
Hi, kids.
Extreme close-up.
No. So you're gonna snag like a tiny bit of clay and then just mold it into a little bit of a triangle shape.
Pyramid or triangle?
Just a triangle.
So flat.
Yep.
Okay. Pretty.
There we go. A triangle shape. Yep, that's perfect. And we're going to soften the bit of part of the triangle.
So that's it, guys. I hope you have enjoyed this episode on EE or Extension Education and my interview with the lovely Adrienne Alexander. She is a wealth of information, so I will definitely pop a link to her in the description below. If you have any concerns or questions, please get in contact with her. She would be happy to help you or send you in the right direction. Now, next week, I am going to be doing an episode on extracurricular activities and how they fit into our curriculums. I hope to see you all there. I just wanted to say thank you so much to everyone who has been subscribing. It's been such a lovely experience getting to know everybody. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you like this video, hit the like button and I will see you next week. See you guys.
Hello, Mother. I don't know if you can hear me, and here's my beat.